So, Joe, do you have anything else to talk about here?
No, I think it's that time.
All right. In that case, it's now time for the BFL Weekly Update.
Oh, yeah.
And, Joe, I don't know if we're going to keep doing the BFL Weekly Update.
Because we're running out of BFLs.
We're running out of BFLs. We're in the regional season now. This is the last full weekend of BFL Super Tournaments. And to kick things off this week, we've got the Hoosier division fishing on the Ohio River out of Tanner's Creek. Brandon Houston caught 18 pounds, 10 ounces, eclipsed second place by nearly a 5-pound margin.
Wow. Dominated.
To pick up the win. I mean, he did incredible. And I'm going to let him talk about that right now.
Fished creeks all day. I stayed in one creek all day downriver from where we took off at. The first day, they seemed to be eating moving baits. Caught them pretty much all my fish from two key banks, literally 100-yard stretches. But like I said, the first day they were eating moving baits, spinner baits, crankbaits. The second day, I started off throwing spinner baits, crankbaits, and they weren't eating it. And picked up a flipping stick, my old go-to bait, green pumpkin tube, and that's what I ended up catching them on the second day. They were just tucked way back into the cover real tight, just fishing laydowns, just anything that holds fish, typical river stuff. All my fish were coming from, less than 3 foot of water. But like I said, bait was key, and finding the bigger bait was key. I mean, there's a lot of bait on that river, and almost everywhere you go, back in them creeks, you're going to find bait. But if you can find the bigger shad, the 2 and 3 inch shad instead of just them, little fry, that's what's key, man, is finding that bigger bait. And both of those banks, they had that bigger bait on them.
Basically, the only thing that requires any further explanation is that he was feeling really good at going into weigh-in on day 2.
I bet.
He caught, I think, a 4-pounder and a 3-pounder before like 9 o'clock on the morning of day 2. And he told us co-angler, tell you what, if I fill out my limit, I got this thing wrapped up. He filled out his limit. He had the thing wrapped up. I mean, he was cooking in this one. It was cool to talk to him. He had him pretty dialed in. He knew what he was looking for, and it was a really a great effort by him for sure.
4-pounder and a 3-pounder on the Ohio River. That's pretty dang good. So, Congratulations, Brandon Houston. Nice job.
All right. Next up, the Michigan division on Lake St. Clair. Scott Dobson caught 42 pounds even. It was his 4th win with FLW. And of course, it was actually his first BFL Super Tournament win. Dobson also used to fish the tour. So he's not doing that now. He's taking it off to spend more time with his family. And I'm going to let him talk about his win right now.
The first and last. And if I wouldn't have bombed out on, I had one bad stumble on a St. Clair tournament. I think in July, I came in like 40th place, which is just like atrocious for me. And I just couldn't get my head screwed on right in that tournament, but I should have won the points too. But I came in second. I think I missed it by like 4 points, 4 or 5 points. I focused on a break that had perch on the break, and I found a clean spot with a couple boulders on it. And there was a little bit of cabbage on that next to the boulder. So it was a little depression on the break. I had a clean spot, had some cabbage and a couple boulders. It was a first early bite flurry that lasted for about an hour and a half. And after that, after the sun got up high, it was done. It was game over. And then I just ran around and tried to focus on some areas to try to get a big bite, and cut on my way probably first thing in the morning, the first hour, and then I would call up 1 or 2 fish throughout the day. But it was nearly calm winds and had a breath of wind for 4 days. 2 days prior to the tournament and both days of the tournament was hot, unseasonably warm, and not a breath of wind. So once the sun got up high and the wind, obviously there was no wind, it just was a tough bite the rest of the day.
So that's pretty much how he did it. He had a really good strategy going to hit his fish in the morning and he made a few key moves for sure later in the days that helped him upgrade, especially on day 2, headed into weigh-in about 15 minutes before. He was fishing right near the boat launch. He caught a 3.5 pounder, which he called a 2 pounder, and that probably / maybe made the difference in him being in second place and in him winning.
Did he happen to mention his species of fish? Were they all smallmouth? Did he have some largemouth mixed in?
Well, he did not. I assume they were all smallmouth.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's what he was fishing for.
Okay.
Although I could see that maybe that 3 pounder,
right? That's what I was kind of thinking.
Would have been a largemouth. At the same time, I think if he caught a largemouth, he probably would have mentioned it because it's kind of a weird thing for you to weigh in largemouth at a St. Clair tournament. Probably no largemouth.
Okay. Just curious. Congratulations.
It's fair.
Congratulations, Scott Dobson.
Alrighty. Moving on. Lake Norman, the North Carolina division, Christopher Brown caught 25 pounds, 13 ounces to pick up the win. Eric Self, FLW Tour co-angler, led on day 1, cratered on day 2. That was a bummer. But Christopher Brown, he had him pretty dialed in. He basically threw one bait the whole time, and I'm going to let him talk about that.
I caught all of my fish on a green pumpkin blue flake zoom trick worm on a 1/4 ounce Dave's tournament tackle shaky head. I caught them in the mid-lake area, middle, above the 150 bridge, fishing docks, anywhere from 4 to about 10 foot deep. I caught a mixture each day of spots and largemouth, but I got fortunate both days. I got a big bite. I caught a 5 pounder on Saturday and a 5 pounder on Sunday. To really honestly tell you the truth, there wasn't really a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it. It was really docks that I had got bit on in practice. I mean, it changed a little bit from practice to the tournament because when I had practiced up until the week prior to the tournament, they had really been biting in pockets pretty good, but it seemed like during the tournament they kind of got off that pocket pattern, and I caught them mostly on piers on the main part of the creek. It seemed like if you could pier around a point was really seemed like it was really key. But I mean, it seemed like if it had more than about 9 or 10 foot of water on the very end of the pier, I had a hard time getting bit on a pier that had, a lot of those piers at Lake Norman are dug out around the piers where they park those big boats, And it was mostly a shallow deal. A lot of guys were catching them deep, but I couldn't catch them like that.
The interesting thing about, I'm going to start that again. The interesting thing about Brown's pattern to me was that he was actually using a bait caster the whole time. He was, skipping this shaky head way up under docks.
Mm-hmm.
And every cast he made was with a bait caster and 16-pound fluoro. And to hear him tell it, that was pretty key, especially on his 2 5-pounders that he caught, because he said those 5-pounders took him for a ride under those docks. And he thought both of them that he barely got out. I think if he'd been throwing this on a spinning rod with like maybe 10-pound test or something, those 2 5-pounders might have been taken off.
Sure.
So it sounded like he made the right decision, and really caught him pretty well in this event.
Congratulations, Christopher Brown.
All right, moving on to the Ozark division.
Hey, I know this guy.
Me? Oh, I've never heard of him in my life. No.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
this guy. Lake of the Ozarks, a Chevy Pro, Theon Hibden.
Former podcast guest.
Yeah. He caught 31 pounds, 2 ounces, and he's going to explain in great detail how he caught his fish.
Caught them mostly skipping up under boat docks, under brush, around brush, but up under boat docks. We get a lot of fishing pressure this time of the year, and I just started picking apart docks and getting my stuff back up under there further than everybody else, and that's just kind of the way it happened. 90% of them came on a jig with a show bug on the back of it and a Lucky Strike creature bait, Texas rigged. Most of the colors were darker because I was fishing muddier water in the upper reaches of Lake of the Ozarks. The fish were from 7-8 foot, foot and a half. It just I just had to go to the right kind of docks and fish them real slow. And like I say, the docks that I knew were heavily pressured, I kind of had to get in there and dig around to get to them a little bit harder than everybody else was. So that's basically it. I fished docks that, I fished 25 years ago. It was just kind of getting a feel for, what kind of water the fish were in, and once I did, I just kind of ran with it. So, caught a few fish yesterday on a shaky head also. Fishing was getting a little bit tougher, and they were pulling my bait off and tearing the tails off of my little creature bait. And so yesterday, a couple of times that happened, and my dad had been out practicing with one of my sons, and he had caught some on a shaky head worm, and so yesterday that happened to me a couple times, and I picked up a shaky head, and, caught 3 keepers on that. So, but basically it was, and that was on a 6-inch razor worm, Lucky Strike razor worm. Like I say, I caught them on a varied amount of colors, but most of them were dark colors because I was fishing dirty water. So, but caught one decent one on a top water bait yesterday morning. Seen the fish come up schooling and threw it out there and caught a decent keeper, one of the ones I weighed in yesterday on that. But other than that, they come on a jig and a Guido bug, and like I say, the Lucky Strike creature bait. And if you want a shaky head, all of them around boat docks in some form or fashion.
So I called up Dion on Monday morning. I was like, hey, how'd you catch your fish? Boom, he just goes. He's a heck of a talker, that's for sure. And, I know a BFL is not a tour-level event, but he was pretty excited to win this event. You could tell. It's always an accomplishment to win. He was real proud of the field he did it against. He said, if you look at the top 20 in that tournament, those are the 20 best guys for fishing Lake of the Ozarks. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, Marcus Sakura wasn't in the top 20. I didn't say that, but I was thinking that. But I think besides Marcus Sakura, it was pretty stacked top 20. He did it against some good guys, and I'm sure had fun doing it.
I loved the quote of his where he said, he's a pro. He's going to fish as hard for 50 cents as he will for, 125 grand on the FLW Tour. So he was proud of this one. That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And his, basically like the whole Hibden family was in this top 20 to some extent. I know Peyton was in it. I think Guido maybe didn't fish, so I'm not sure about that. And there might even have been another Hibden in there. I'm not 100% sure on that. But this was a Hibden-dominated event.
The Hibden clan getting it done.
For sure.
Congratulations, Dion. And I believe this was Dion's first ever BFL win, if I'm correct there. I think I'm correct.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong. I think he's actually got 2 others.
Okay.
Both on Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, scratch that then.
I think. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I remember looking him up and I was like, oh, look. So I think you're wrong on that one.
All right. Never mind.
That's okay. Moving on. The volunteer division fished Watts Bar. Tim Smiley caught 20 pounds, 12 ounces for just 6 bass. And he's going to talk about that right now.
Well, it's going to be a long story because there was so many different ways I caught them, but I can tell you the first day I didn't run nowhere away from the ramp. I just stayed in Rockwood Slough there, and I caught my first fish flipping on a jig in about 2 foot of water. And it was about a 3-pounder, I guess. And then I flipped some more and didn't do no good, and caught a little fish or 2. And then the next keeper I caught it on a Carolina rig in about 15 foot of water. And it was about a 4 1/4, 4 1/2 or something.
No kidding. That's a big one.
Yeah. And then I ran up the river
and fished for about probably 2.5, 3 hours before I caught my next keeper, and it was about a 2.5 pounder or something. And I had 3 fish running back in. Caught my 4th fish on a crankbait in about 15 foot of water, and it was about a 4 pounder. And that's my 4 fish that I had the first day. All right, and then the second day I started back in Rockwood Slough again and fished for about 3 hours and didn't have a fish. And ran down the lake about 10 miles and caught a keeper and about 2 non-keepers on a Carolina rig in about 10 foot of water or something. And caught some more non-keepers down there, fished for a couple more hours. And didn't do no good, so came back up and fished some more places and didn't do any good, and finally went back to a place that I caught that 4 pounder on crank the day before. And my co-angler caught a keeper, his only keeper, on a drop shot there. And the next cast I caught about a 5.5 on a crankbait, and that was the 2 fish that I weighed in the second day. So,
all right. So these, it sounded like you fished a couple of spots and caught a few fish out of some pretty, well, not super deep, but out of the deeper stuff. Were you looking for anything specific on those spots? Were you fishing brush or?
No, what it was is places that I've caught them there for years, and I just know that fish get there, and I just, I catch them certain ways on those places. Like that one place I catch them on a Carolina rig. And the other place I catch them cranking. And I just go do that when I'm on that lake. And luckily I caught 2 of my best ones off one place and the other best one off the other.
So the baits he threw, you heard him talk about how he caught his fish deep, or some of his fish deep anyhow. He threw a 6XD, was his crankbait of choice, and he was throwing a net bait Mad Pocket which is kind of a brush hog looking deal, on his Carolina rig. And man, this was a tough tournament. I mean, Wesley Strader fished in it. I think he caught 7 pounds on the first day and didn't make the cut. It was rough out there. And I talked to him. I said, "Well, do you know why it was so tough?" And he said, "It's just always tough this time of year on Watts Bar." So, I guess if you're looking for a test of angling ability, go out and fish Watts Bar in late September.
Congratulations, Tim Smiley. Real quick, Jody, that was Deion's first ever BFL win. It was his first ever BFL top 10. He's got them all over on the Tour and the Rayovac series and the old FLW series. But yeah, first ever top 10 and win in BFL competition.
I guess he's got other wins, and I guess I have them misplaced.
Quite a few.
For something then.
He's been around for a while, that's for sure. I can see why you would be mistaken, but yeah, not a whole lot of BFL experience for Deion, so I can see why he was so proud of it.
Well, I'm glad that he finally had a chance to win a BFL event. It's a very special moment for everybody when it happens, I'm sure. And that has been the BFL Weekly Update. For more like this, check out the rest of the FLW podcast at flwoutdoors.com or on iTunes.